It is a stalker story, but it's a stalker story with a twist.
So Baby Reindeer, if you haven't heard of it, you're living under a rock.
6 months maybe?
Why'd it take you so long to report it?
I think she needs help. She comes to my work, my house.
Because it has blasted off as the new show to watch. It's already being talked about as one of the best miniseries in the history of online streaming platforms, and take that in. Because this crazy weird show was actually written according to the main character's real life story of him being stalked. And let me tell you, this is an insanely demented and unsettling story that was turned into a phenomenal show. So I'm gonna get right into the backstory behind this, and also, spoiler warning, because this is about to get a little crazy.
Martha, can you let go of my hand now, please? Martha, please let go!
Don't you dare!
The show was written and performed in by Richard Gadd, a Scottish comedian who has seen such immense popularity since being released because obviously he also played the main character, Donnie Dunn. Richard revealed that people have been doing almost anything though to figure out who the Martha character in the show was based on. If you haven't watched the show, Martha is the woman who stalks Richard, and it causes this entire crazy story of events. I can't even get into it right now. But for good reason, people want to find out who it's based on because it's been revealed that it was a true story.
You can't call me a stalker! Well, you're the one creeping around my house at night!
This show is so messed up, and that character of Martha, also even Donnie, was so insane that you just couldn't take your eyes off of it if you tried. I watched it in the span of like 5 hours. Richard Gadd was interviewed by Forbes magazine and gave an honest depiction about how it wouldn't be fair for him to reveal, though, who Martha's odd and really demented character was based on. Richard, in an Instagram story, actually recently told his viewers to just stop asking. He said, "Please don't speculate on who any of the real life people could be. That's not the point of our show. Lots of love, Richard." And although the series is based on the Scottish comedian's actual experiences with a stalker, the show is fictionalized for legal and artistic purposes. And Richard said that it is actually all emotionally true though.
Based in my early 20s where I went through quite a lot of pretty crazy things.
He said in an interview with Forbes that there are just certain projections that you can't make about someone else's life and put into television. He continued on saying obviously they were aware that some characters in it are very vulnerable people in real life, so you don't want to make their lives more difficult. And if you have to change things to protect yourself and protect other people, then you do it. So my question to you is, would you expose your stalker if you had the chance to make a mega popular TV series? Well, if you're Richard Gadd, you wouldn't. Because Richard opted in not to disclose the name of his real life stalker, but he did describe her in quite an interesting manner, saying that she was idiosyncratic in a conversation with GQ magazine. He said that we've taken extensive measures to conceal the stalker's identity to the extent that I doubt she would even recognize herself. But what's being borrowed as an emotional truth is not just something that you should dismiss. Richard did say that the casting of the stalker character though was done in a very specific manner, and that Jess Gunning, the woman who phenomenally played Martha in the show, and let me tell you, she was the perfect person for the role, Richard claims that it was the best casting decision that they could have made. Richard said that when I was looking for the essence of the individual, their energy, and Jess showed us that she embodied it perfectly, that was who they had to go with. Richard said that Jess Gunning was exceptional. He needed to find someone who could be vulnerable one moment, furious the next, unpredictable yet deeply sympathetic. He needed someone who could convey a whole range of emotions. And now that I'm talking about this description, I think that maybe I should have been cast for that role. But in terms of the actual situation, just what did Richard have to endure in real life? Well, let's just say that Richard did give us a debrief into what really happened and led him to write this show. Because while talking in an interview with Variety magazine, Richard said that he wasn't worried about being contacted by the real Martha. He claimed that due to where things ended in real life, it wasn't a concern for him. And in an article from The Times, Richard described the situation as being technically resolved. He also suggested that the stalker didn't go to jail, and it was a woman, and that he didn't want to throw someone who is at level of mentally unwell behind bars. Although it was confirmed by Richard Gadd that he actually did press charges onto the stalker, similarly to how his character did in the show to Martha.
And yeah, it was a hell of a thing to write and shoot.
Richard said that he felt let down by the police and the institution when he was going through it, and as we saw in the show, his feelings showed. Richard specifically commented about this, saying, "I do think that the institution needs improvement, especially around stalking. I can think of numerous examples where people have complained to the police about a stalker, but because they've had a previous relationship, the police can't take it seriously. They look for someone or a concrete reason to arrest them, but sometimes the situations are just more nuanced than that." He added on, saying that the first thing the police should do is try to preserve the safety of the person who's making the report, rather than going through a long process to work out whether they should believe them or not. So based on the fact that Richard has been open about his experience with his stalker, you can assume that the show was played up in certain aspects for artistic and dramatic purposes. It was no walk in the park for Richard to deal with his real life stalker though. And that is obviously no walk by himself, at least. Have you binge watched the show yet? Because if you haven't, I can't recommend it enough. From the team here at FTD News, open your Netflix account and watch Baby Reindeer.